Thank you, everybody, for joining us in our next installment here of the Cybersecurity Hot Seat. Today, we are extremely lucky and blessed to have Miss Emilyann Fogarty on the hot seat today. Emily has become a awesome ally of mine locally here in Rochester from a cybersecurity perspective, has a unique background, and I think a really interesting story to tell about how she broke into the industry and some of her thoughts around that. So, Emilyann, thank you so much for joining, and glad you are here.
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be here today. So I'm Emilyann Fogarty, Director of Information Security at Datto, Rochester headquarters in Connecticut, but Rochester-based community, and have been in the security field since going back to WannaCry, so 2016, 2017. But I've been, in technology my whole career and really started out in healthcare, primarily because honestly, I thought that was what you did when you wanted to help people. You got into healthcare to take care of people and their health, and I did that through the lens of using imaging equipment to do that. Fell in love with the business model of healthcare and hospitals and how we deliver this equipment to the end user and to the patient, and just became really inquisitive about, more sort of the business side of things. Pursued my MBA and, went to work for a medical device manufacturer. And through that lens, I was on a sales engineering sort of role where I worked side by side with the sales team, and I worked very closely with the customers and really learned about their experience. And it was really through that I helped to start to see the balance between usability and security as it relates to those that are not really thinking about it as the professionals that we are today, right? And I switched roles through that time and became on the members of the product management team. So I went from the person on the end of the product to the person on the creating side of it, and what went into it. So how the quality of the product was developed, including security, and really loved that, and took on more responsibility in project management and program management, and kind of what I'll say is just began continuing to walk through doors that had been open for me, which has always been my kind of MO. I don't really know how I got to where I am today, other than the doors were sort of opened, and I just took a chance. And then WannaCry happened, and security was all of a sudden definitely a concern for healthcare systems, and also the manufacturers that provided devices to them. And so I was again offered an opportunity from an amazing peer of mine to build a program that didn't exist in the security space, and kind of equipped with nothing but my project management skills, I took that on, and sort of the rest is history.
It's really interesting, and we're going to hit on this in another one of our topics. Some of the other people we're going to bring on, but you touched on this a few times, and I want to pause here for a second and stay with this. Is the project management piece of cybersecurity. And, it's one of those hidden gotchas in our industry of whether you're launching a project or there's an actual incident that's taken place. I think if you came along during WannaCry, you saw chaos just absolutely ravage our industry and people. And project management brings a real, in my opinion at least, it brings a real sense of stability to a cybersecurity program or an incident. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the value of having that project management background,
Yeah.
and how you've been able to translate that into security?
Oh, definitely. Yes. I think, one of the most fundamental pieces of project management, in particular around, relationship to cyber, I should say, is risk, right? And you're
Mm,
constantly managing risk, whether it's a project that you're managing related to, developing a widget, or it's, some sort of project related to managing a program. And so you're constantly weighing the risk, whether you're accepting that risk, whether you're mitigating it, whether you're transferring it. And those are always conversations that you have to be able to navigate as a project manager. The other thing that's super important is it all starts with stakeholder management, right? And also agreeing to the direction that we're heading. So that begins with a charter. I'm very program oriented. So when I think about building a program, I always think about like who are my stakeholders? What are the key success factors look like for this? At what point do I need to engage this team for feedback and for communication? What does communication look like? Right? These are all very basic, fundamental things we sort of honestly take for granted. But in the project management world, like those are fundamental keys to success. And so having that documented and having that reviewed and socialized has been, instrumental in helping me, build these programs. Coming from a background that's frankly not very technical in the computer science sense of things, right? And being able to drive outcomes. I think that that's been really, the best use of project management from my experience. And truthfully, like this is a little bit bleeding into maybe some other of your questions, but several years ago, I had seen the New York State CISO get up on stage, and she was a keynote speaker at a conference locally, and she was like, "I don't have a technical background. I have my project management certificate, my PMP, and I hire really smart people, and together we're going to go on this mission." And that was really my sort of evidence and sort of shining light that I'm like, yeah, I can do this, right? Like I may not have that traditional background, but I have all the tools that I know I can leverage to drive us in the right direction.
Yeah, you hit on the key phrase, traditional background. I think the one thing that our industry has lacked, we've talked about this before, is the progressive mindset of who we can get into cybersecurity. And the organizational skills are so vital to it. And people skills, which we'll probably get into a little bit. But you started kind of with a healthcare mindset and this benevolent mindset of, hey, I want to help people, I want to work with people, and cybersecurity has served as that conduit for you, which is fantastic. So, um, this one we might be here for a little bit. It might get a little bit deep, but as people watch this, and we have another hot seat episode that's coming out too, from another guy that I spoke with. But as people watch this, the goal is to make them more confident. They're kind of on the fence, like, hey, I've kind of been doing this for 15, 20 years. I'm seeing cybersecurity. It might be something I want to get into. There might be some apprehension about getting into it. So there are some barriers and there are some challenges that you face when you try to break into any industry and kind of reinvent yourself, but especially cybersecurity. I've noticed it difficult for some people. So I was wondering if you could share some of the some of the barriers and some of the challenges that you've had breaking into cybersecurity. We could have a little dialogue based off of that, but yeah, just wanted to kick that question over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to kind of say it bluntly, we can be our own worst enemy, right?
Mm.
And I think our generation was raised to think, what is it you want to be when you grow up, right? And you had to know at a really young age what it is you wanted to do. And so we create these mental barriers around what we're capable of, right? And I think even maybe as adults that are thinking about maybe they're unhappy in their role and they're thinking about, oh gosh, like I don't even know what else I could do, or it's too late in life to change my mind. I actually had a really amazing mentor who said, why don't you picture, like, stop thinking about like what it is you want to do or like what options are on the table, but picture like what your day looks like. Like, what do you want your day to look like?
Mhm.
And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing advice because, I think the pandemic has really highlighted a lot of what is important to many of us in terms of what our day looks like and maybe things that were not even conceivably available in terms of work-life balance or remote versus in office, hybrid, you name it. It's opened up a lot of these opportunities for us. And so I would start with that in terms of like, what do you find enjoyable, right? What is the thing that brings you joy? Um, and then from there, what's nice about security is there's a ton of options, right? There's a ton of, domains that you can focus on. For me, that technical side of things and or lack thereof, as I sometimes say, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but I've always sort of felt like that's been a little bit of um, a challenge for me in terms of comparing myself to my peers. Specifically, I'm a director today, and I have other directors that are peers of mine, and you get measured right against your peers. And sometimes if you are being compared up against a more technical person, um, might get weighed differently. And I would say that the way that you combat that is like, what are the outcomes that you're delivering, right? What value are you adding? And we all are very, we can fall into this inherent bias, right? That comes up when you think about traditional security roles. And so that's always been something. But I bounce these conversations very openly with my peers in terms of these biases I think I have, or I feel like I might have against me, and I get kind of challenged by that in terms of them coming back to me and saying like, why do you think you're not technical? And you can talk about this, 100 or 853 or NIST, all the frameworks, you name it. Like you can do all this. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I'm not like hands-on keyboard writing code and but now there's so many low-code solutions out there and amazing tools that I think our industry has created, which is phenomenal. But yeah, I think that we all have these things, right? And I think the way you get around that is to build this network of peers, to build this network of, whether it's technical or non-technical, leadership or, non-leadership type of roles, to check your biases and really discuss, what's interesting to you and what you like to do so that you can start to build upon that, right? And start to support that in your career.
Yeah, I think that's good, and thank you for being transparent and open and vulnerable and sharing that, because I think that's something that plagues a lot of people. I know it plagues me, and I think if you have your core group of people, they will say that overly technical people. I've worked with some of the greatest technical minds in the globe from a cybersecurity perspective, and some of them are absolutely deathly afraid to get up and talk about it. They're just like, well, why would anybody want to hear from me? I'm just a propeller head and I just know code and I'm binary. But I'm like, if you just get up there and share what you have in your brain, the difference you're going to make in someone's in someone's life or company's life could be fantastic. So I think it's really interesting that you share that. And I think from a cybersecurity perspective, we're getting slightly better in that kind of authenticity and transparency to say, hey, I think of myself. I'm like, why would anybody want to talk to me? Like, but I'm my own worst enemy. I'm my own
Yeah,
worst
we
enemy when
are.
we're
Yeah, we
we're
absolutely are.
we are our own worst enemies when it comes to stuff like that. But yet, giving ourselves the freedom to be confident. I heard somebody explain it very well the other day. There's confidence and then there's arrogance. Confidence is saying, hey, I'm good at this. Like, I've
Yeah.
worked very hard. I didn't roll out of bed. Like, I'm good at it. Arrogance is taking that stuff that we're good at and beating people down with it or making people feel bad about it or abusing the power that we've been given. And I think to get it out there like that and to talk about it like that is really interesting. So in preparation for this, we talked about this a little bit, and it shouldn't be controversial, but some people might take it as controversial. But I want to talk about it. I have two daughters that I love very, very much, and I want to instill with them the thought that you work hard, you do your best at it. Opportunities abound from there. But in cyber, females, tend to have their challenges and things like that. So, if you whatever level you're comfortable
Yeah.
with sharing, I definitely think that's kind of like the elephant in the room, that maybe some people are thinking about in the back of their head in thinking of entering this field, but really don't want to talk about it. So, like I said, any level of comfort that you have is sharing. But I am interested to get your feedback in that subject.
Yeah, I love this one because I think it's not a black and white answer. I'm one of two girls as well. My dad used to joke growing up that even the dog was a girl. He was outnumbered in every dimension. But one of the things that I was raised was really strong conviction that I could do anything I set myself out to do. So I was really raised with that foundation that I was capable, right? No matter what it was I went for. Interestingly enough, though, when I was in healthcare, the dialogue was flipped, right? I was primarily around females,
Mm,
female managers, female leaders. Everywhere I looked, there was representation. But I got to be honest with you, I faced so much criticism and I faced a lot of competition amongst my peers and just being knocked down at every
mm,
possible, angle because it was seen as not valued and we weren't supporting one another. And
mm,
I was really crushed by that. And it wasn't until I actually moved into engineering and moved into manufacturing that I was surrounded by primarily men. And middle-aged men or older men and these those relationships they looked at me as somebody who was a thought leader that was fresh to the space, and it was actually a male who gave me that opportunity to get into cyber and mentored me, and helped me think I was capable.
mhm,
And I know there are those stories where, and it still happens, right, where women are challenged in the workplace, but it was through the course of my career in cyber that I had these really amazing men who said, no, you need to have a seat at the table and you need to be the voice in the room. And, I have to really honor that. I have to honor that space that they provided
mhm,
for me. But, on the other hand, just because I didn't have a very strong female presence to look up to professionally, it further drove my desire to be that for my team and for
mhm,
the peers in my organization to say, like, you need to see yourself in this position, in the next 3 to 5 years. You need to see yourself climbing the corporate ladder. And what can I do
mm,
to help you? Like, what do we need to focus on? And so, yes, we have a long way to go in this industry. We definitely are doing a lot to promote women in STEM and in technology in general.
mhm,
I think we get a little bit so heavily focused again on the technical side of things, though. Again, thinking you have to be technical. And I say technical, I mean hands on keyboard to
mhm,
do this. And that's just
mhm,
not the reality. And furthermore, it's also not the reality that you have to be a GRC person if you're going to be in security and you don't have, coding experience.
mhm.
I have a team of very technical individuals. In fact, I joke that I have everything but GRC, in fact, that reports to me. And the reality is, like, kind of going back to, the biases we described, having everybody in the room be the same person, be the same skill set, same qualifications, like that's not going anywhere, right? We're not adding value. So whether you're, a female or a male in the workplace, we should always be looking at how can we build up the younger generation or the generation that just, maybe they're not happy in what they're doing. Look outside your box, if you will, and
Mm,
your own team to say, like, what talent do we have in this organization that would be really good in cyber, right? Like thinking creatively, because I don't think, especially as we get older, we know what our options are. And so it's really good to just, think about that from a holistic perspective as well.
Yeah, that's a great answer. for a couple of different ways, but one of the things you hit on that just popped into my head is encouraging all people
Yeah.
to get into cyber. And I think sometimes we pigeonhole it like, okay, I'm black, so it's like, well, you got to reach out to the inner city minorities and get them in there, or you're a woman, I got to reach out to women. But like, I think when you holistically look at it, like, I think of, again, people that maybe have 10, 15 years left in their professional career, and they want to, I mean, I can't think of a more miserable experience or existence than running out the clock professionally. Like, maybe some people like that. Me, I get a panic attack thinking that
Yes.
I'm looking at the calendar to turn, and just to, get to a point of where I'm done. But what does I'm done really mean? So I really, again, the goal of these conversations that I'm having specifically with you, and the one that I have with Jason, is like, if you're in that spot, like, this could potentially be an industry to use those skills that you talked about, to help along. So I think that's great. I also, love the ownership. You've spoken openly. We've had great conversations about our great spouses and our great family units that we have at home, and that support that you get from home, and like what you're working for really propels you to say, okay, how can I be the best version of me? Because I always tell people, the boardroom that I'm the most concerned about is my dining room table. If I can't sit across the dining room table from my wife, my four kids, and it's not only money. I think Jay-Z just was on an interview, and he said the money, the notoriety, the status. He's like, that's all, don't chase that. That's all secondary. It really comes down to, are you doing what you were put on this earth to do? And from that, are you supporting your family
Yeah.
correctly? And so, that's of major importance. And I think our generation, I think we're the first ones through the wall, so I think we're getting the most bloodied from it. But when you think of your children, I think of my children. Hopefully these things that we're going through are going to pave the way for them to have that confidence, to have that freedom to say, you know what, I'm going to try it. If I fail, I fail. Like, I don't care. I'm not putting it on Facebook. I'm not doing a TikTok dance about it. Like, I'm gonna fail, and that's it. And on to the next. And embracing that challenge, and embracing, that it's okay to try something. And if it doesn't pan out, doesn't mean that you're a bad person, or that you're a failure, or whatever like that. So love how you put that. So we talked about project management, as a skill, and a couple other ancillary things, but what are the soft skills do you think someone would need that would come in, to this industry?
Yeah, that's a huge component of this, right? Honestly, it's having the ability to communicate. And I mean that in both an active and a passive listening capacity, as
Okay.
well as a conversational capacity. Um, it's security, and I say this all the time. When you're in this industry, you get a bad rap for a lot of reasons.
Hmm.
Historically, right? I mean, historically, they've been a department of no, or no but, or yes but, I should say. And so, like, we just don't have a good reputation with building collaboration relationships with people. But the reality is, like, security is not just a department in an organization. It's in the ethos of the company. It's in the culture of how people operate. There's a term thrown around very commonly in the industry, which is the humans are the weakest link. Which I kind of cringe when I hear that,
Mm,
because it's not that they're the weakest link. It's just that some people are left out. And, we need to bring everybody into the fold, and we need to help them be successful, because, there's still this transition that we're going through in our population, which is that, my parents and older, like, they didn't have access to computers when they were younger. This is not something that is in their DNA the
mm,
way our children are going to be raised. And so
mm,
we need to help them understand in terms that they recognize, and in situations that they recognize. And so, like, I'll give you a really good example of a customer that I had one time, where we were going through enforcing two-factor authentication with one of our products. And he was very angry about it. And he said, Emilyann, I don't understand this. My bank doesn't even make me do this. And they have all my financial data. Why are we doing this? It slows me down and I just can't do it. And I just let him talk about what was bothering him. And I let him get it all out and just tell me about his pain points. And, naturally, the more you listen, the less you talk, the more they will talk. And, we got to the end of the conversation and I said, I understand completely that this is frustrating to you. And I understand why it doesn't make sense that this is not the standard everywhere. But I said, let's talk about what's happening around us, right? Let's take away Datto. Let's take away the product. Let's take away all of this work stuff and talk about what's happening in the world. And, we started talking about the increased prevalence of attacks on these accounts and, common passwords and things of that nature, and how the FBI came out with some warnings and how two-factor was important. And by the end of this conversation, he was said, can you tell me how I can help my daughter secure her Instagram and her TikTok? And he's like, how do I make sure she's not, sharing data inadvertently? And that to me was just like really just the truest example of how these are people, like human beings that are behind the keyboards or behind the telephone or behind the desk, right? And we just need to find a way to bring that to the forefront more consistently than we have in the past. And I know it's challenging because in security, everything is just, putting out fires a lot of the time. And you feel like you're juggling more work than you could possibly handle in one day. But if you just take the time to like normalize like what you're talking about and normalize the person that you're talking with, like building that relationship pays ridiculous dividends on the long run, because that education, that trust, that relationship that you've built, when something, becomes an emergency and you need to come to them and say, look, we need to do this now. And we can't like wait around. They're like, yes, we will do that right now. We're going to work together because you've built that trust with that person, and like they understand that you're all working towards the same thing. And so those soft skills around just building relationships and trust are such a huge benefit to having success in this industry.
So you flipped the script there. Humans are actually our strongest link to protection of an organization or data or applicate, whatever you want to call it. But it's our job as cybersecurity professionals to draw that out of them. I think back to a penetration testing report review that I did for a skilled nursing facility, and there was some social engineering involved in it. And I think it was 86% of the nursing staff not only clicked on the phishing link, but credentialed admin rights to the person conducting the penetration tests and getting to do the report. And they're kind of joking around, like, "Oh, I guess we failed." And it's like, well, do you understand that you could have killed one of your patients, and like the room just stops and it goes dead, and you could tell people are getting agitated by my audacious statement, which I don't care. I mean, whatever. What are you going to do to me? So, but it's like, no. If you're in charge, I'll give you an example. If you're in charge of medication, and a criminal, and I think people don't equate that, a criminal comes in and they change a 0 from 50 milligrams to 500 milligrams on a pill that you're supposed to give Mr. Jones on floor 5, and you administer that dosage to him and you kill him, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole paradigm shift happened with the organization. I talked to the CIO 6 months later. He's like, dude, everything changed because, again, I think people inherently want to do the right thing. I think of my kids, and I'm sure you can equate it to your kids as well. I think inherently they want to do the right, but they need to be taught. Like they need to be taught how to do, because they just don't know. And I think our corporate ecosystem, like you said, a lot of people did not grow up with cyber risk. A lot of people did not grow up with constant connectivity or instant ways of communication. It's like, okay, if we could teach that, then it goes off. Not a zeros and ones, not a DMZ conversation, not a subnet conversation, but a, hey, this is what it could mean if something tragic like that were to happen to our organization, and being able to communicate that is huge. So great,
Yeah.
great answer. Great answer. So lastly, you know, I would say, figure the people that are going to be watching this might be on the fence or whatever, when it comes down to, you know, what it is that you're looking to do. But what would you tell people to consider, if they were to make a move? You know, and let's focus positively on this. I was going to say, what are some of the positive and negatives, but it's Friday afternoon, it's sunny out. Let's be a little bit positive here. So, you know, what are some of the positive and rewarding aspects of joining cybersecurity that you've been able to ascertain since coming over to the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, going back to the helping people reason that I got into the careers that I did, at the end of the day, you're always helping somebody, right? Whether it's a small or medium business, whether it's you know, the help desk that is getting inundated and beat up by, you know, customers on the other end, helping people do their job a little bit easier, a little bit safer, and also, you know, taking it as outside of work entirely. Like you're helping people bring these ideas and this education to their home and to their environment, right? I think even the pandemic highlighted all of these devices that are now connecting to our internet at home, which was an entirely new attack surface that wasn't really on anybody's radar up until then. And, you know, using this information to empower people, to help them take more control over something that doesn't feel like you can control it at the end of the day, because it's changing constantly, right? Um, that to me has been the greatest reward. And I think whether you're, you know, in incident response, whether you're in, you know, security operations or GRC, you know, AppSec, like you're helping people at the end of the day. You're helping them get better at what they're doing. You're helping them be safer. And that has dividends, you know, that just is exponential to them and to their families and to your customers. And it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. You know, you talked about the nursing. I smiled because I was thinking back to when I saw a white paper many years ago about how you could drain the battery of a pacemaker remotely. And I thought, okay, I'm signed up. I'm ready. I'm in. Like I believe it now, right? And I just think like you're never done. Honestly, you're there. We're always moving. We're always adapting, and that to me is also really really exciting. I think if you're the kind of person, to your point about, I don't want to have to be counting the days on the calendar until I'm done. Like you're never done. You're never, and even you know, some people ask me like, where do you see yourself in the next, you know, 4 or 5 years? And I laugh. I'm like, my gosh, I can't even answer that question, because the way that security is changing and evolving, like you can't even conceive of, you know, what opportunities exist in that kind of time frame. Which is enjoyable too. You know, I think that that's a benefit that people don't really talk about sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, Emilyann, this was great. This was really good. Thank you for your insight, and look forward to people benefiting from the thoughts that you shared today. And we're very thankful from an IGI perspective that you join us here. And thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be a resource also to anybody that's considering, you know, growing their career in security or just wants a little bit of advice. Love to give back to this community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care,
Thank you,
Paul.
everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks.